The first time she said it, there was a smile on her face, but it wasn't a happy one. "You know I'm older than you." Her voice had that soft hesitation people use when they're about to put distance between themselves and something they secretly don't want to lose. The cafe was loud around them, spoons clinking against ceramic cups, someone's laughter breaking into the hum of conversation. But for him, the whole world went quiet. He didn't even look surprised. "My heart doesn't count years." It wasn't meant to be poetic, it just came out that way, honest, unfiltered. She looked at him like he'd said something reckless. Because he had. She was 32, he was 26. 6 years, not a lifetime, not even a decade, but in the way society measured things, it was enough to make people tilt their heads, raise eyebrows, whisper things that began with "Isn't it strange that?" They had met by accident, or maybe by design if you believed in that sort of thing. It had started with a spilled cup of coffee. Her hand bumped into his elbow knocked the cup over, and suddenly his white shirt carried a spreading brown stain like an abstract painting. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." He remembered, laughing instead of getting annoyed. "It's okay. I was thinking of changing my wardrobe anyway." She had offered to pay for dry cleaning. He had refused. She insisted. He insisted harder. So they settled it over another coffee. Then another. And another. At first, she didn't think of it as anything. Just a conversation with someone who listened, really listened, instead of waiting for his turn to speak. Someone who didn't interrupt her mid-sentence. Someone who laughed with his whole face instead of just his mouth. But then he started remembering things. The way she liked her tea with 2 sugars but no milk. The fact that she hated horror movies but secretly watched them when she couldn't sleep. Her dream of opening a small bookstore by the sea someday. No one remembered those things anymore. People her age were busy building careers, marriages, families. Conversations were reduced to schedules and responsibilities and polite check-ins that sounded more like obligations than care. And here was this younger man who noticed when she was quieter than usual. "You didn't smile today," he had said once. I smiled. "Not with your eyes." That scared her. Because he was right. But she began keeping her distance after that. Replying to his messages hours late. Canceling plans with excuses that weren't entirely lies, just exaggerated truths. Telling herself it was for the best. People would talk. Her family would never understand. His friends would laugh. And eventually, he would realize that 6 years mattered, that she wasn't in the same phase of life, that she wanted stability while he still had time to chase adventure. So she started building walls. But he kept showing up at the gates. With random memes, with voice notes about how terrible his cooking experiment had gone, with photos of sunsets he thought she'd like. One evening, he sent a picture of a bookstore window with fairy lights tangled around the frame. "For your someday shop," he wrote. She stared at the screen for a long time. And then she didn't reply. Not that night, not the next morning either. 3 days passed. On the 4th, there was a knock at her door. She opened it expecting a delivery package, and instead found him standing there, slightly out of breath, like he'd climbed the stairs too fast. "You disappeared." "I was busy." "For 72 hours. His voice wasn't angry, just hurt. "You shouldn't be here." "Then tell me to leave." She opened her mouth. And nothing came out. Because she didn't want him to leave. "I'm older than you," she said instead, grasping for logic, for reason, for anything that could push him away without breaking her own heart in the process. He took a step closer. "My heart doesn't count years." But love wasn't supposed to be like this. It wasn't supposed to feel like peace and panic at the same time. With him, everything felt light, spontaneous trips to the park at midnight, dancing in her kitchen to terrible old songs, conversations that lasted until sunrise because neither of them wanted to be the first to say goodbye. But every moment of happiness came with a shadow, a voice in her head reminding her that this wasn't practical. That one day he'd want children when she might not. That one day he'd resent the difference in their timelines. That one day she'd become a compromise instead of a choice. "You deserve someone your own age," she told him one night as they sat on the rooftop of her apartment building. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he asked, "Do you want someone your own age?" The question caught her off guard. That's not the point." "It is," he said quietly, "because I'm not choosing you because you're convenient. I'm choosing you because it's you." She felt tears sting her eyes before she could stop them. "It's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because the world doesn't work that way. The world doesn't get a vote in who I love." Months passed. There were arguments not about age but about fear, her fear, his frustration with it. Sometimes she would pull away, convinced that ending things early would hurt less than losing him later. Sometimes he would get tired of fighting a battle against doubts he didn't share. But they always found their way back. To late-night phone calls. To hands brushing against each other under the table. To laughter that came too easily to be ignored. One rainy evening, as they walked down a nearly empty street, she stopped under a flickering streetlight. "Are you sure?" she asked. "About what?" "About me." He didn't hesitate. "Yes." "Even if people judge you." "Yes." "Even if it gets difficult." He smiled, not the carefree grin she'd fallen for, but something steadier, something certain. Especially then. She looked at him for a long moment, searching for doubt, for hesitation, for anything that would make this easier to walk away from. But there was nothing. Only warmth. Only patience. Only love that didn't seem interested in calendars or numbers or expectations. And for the first time, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, the years didn't matter as much as she'd always been taught they did. Because his heart didn't count them. And slowly, she was learning not to either.